everyone, it's King Tuts Pro. Welcome back to another Final Cut Pro 10 tutorial. In today's video, I'm going to show you 6 amazing music video editing effects from Trapland Pet's newest music video, which I'll have in the description. Be sure to turn on the bell notification so you don't miss out on an editing video like this one. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. All right, so the first effect is going to be this really cool changing color car swap effect, along with a really cool shaky effect every time the actual color of the car changes. Now, all of these effects can be done without any plugins or presets or packs. This is what I've created here, and if I push play, it looks something like this. Very simple and straightforward, and this is going to be the normal video here, so nothing applied. What you want to do is select your video. You want to go into the color tab over here. For this video, I'm going to do color board. And what you're going to do is you're going to click this little shape color mask button, and you're going to have add shape mask or color mask. We're going to hit add color mask. You're going to have a little eyedropper tool. What you want to do is select the paint job. If you click and drag, you're going to see that everything is in white, and what we have selected, if we click and drag on our trackpad or mouse, you're going to see that you're selecting more of that color. So everything that's in gray is what's not being selected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset everything I've done here, and I'm going to select the eyedropper tool again, and I'm going to just click once, and I'm going to hold shift to add to the selection. So what you're doing here is you're just selecting the red areas. And in order to make sure you're actually changing or selecting the color, you're going to go into the master wheel here, and you're going to change this to a different color. So we're going to select blue, but I want to select the car. So I'm going to select the area that we want to change to, so red, hold shift, and just click once on that color until you've selected most of it. So this is where it selected most of that color, and of course it's gotten onto the fence in the back as well as on his skin tone. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a mask to that to get rid of it. So we're going to hit this little button back on here. We're going to hit add shape mask, and you're going to see the shape mask 1. We're going to drag that below color mask. Once we've done that, we're going to change this from add to subtract. So everything inside of this mask is not going to be changed in terms of color. So you're going to see this little kind of circle button. If you drag this to the left, this will make it more of a square shape. If you drag this towards the center, it will make it a round shape. So we're going to make this more of a rectangle shape, and we're going to extend it out using these green circles, and we're going to extend this out like that. And this outer line will control the feather. So the further you drag it out, the softer the edge will be. If you drag it inwards, it's going to be really hard of an edge. So we're going to drag this about here, and this inner kind of green circle will control the rotation. So we're going to drag this to where we want it, and we're going to make this a little bit more round to select more of that vehicle. So something like this. So that looks pretty good. So once we're there, all we got to do now is go where it says shape mask, and you're going to add a keyframe right here, and you're going to go frame by frame. So just press right on the arrow key and just start moving these, making sure that this doesn't get onto the actual interior of the vehicle. And if this shows up there, you're going to have to change the shape mask to make sure that none of this is actually being shown in that video. So we're going to do something like this. Once you're happy with the result, if we push play, it'll look just like that. We're going to start this off without the color change. So we're going to go to this here, and we're going to just hit reset, and we're going to add a keyframe now without any of the color change. So we're going to hit add keyframe to the beginning, and we're going to go about there, and we're going to change this color now to blue or whatever color you want. So we're going to go with a nice blue. So it's going to kind of fade to blue here. And from this point, I'm going to now change this blue to a green color. So we'll go about halfway. We'll make this like a nice green color. So if I push play, it'll change and swap colors to blue. And then from green, we're going to change this to maybe yellow. And then from yellow, we're going to go and change this lastly to a hot pink. So if I push play, it'll look just like that. Now that you have that, what we're going to do is create kind of like a shake effect. To do that, we're going to go into the effects. We're going to go to all video and audio, and we're going to search for earthquake, and we're going to add that onto that video. We're going to go into the video inspector tab, change this to something like this to maybe 40 layers. We can increase this to like 4, so it should look something like this. Now that you have that, what we're going to do is you're going to start it off with 0. You're going to go to the point where it changes to that first color, which is blue, in between here, and we're going to move this to 0. And then we're going to go to the next color, which is about green, and we're going to move this back up to 40. It'll look kind of like that. It's a little crazy. You can, of course, change the amount to something a little less dramatic, but that's pretty much the first effect. Let's move on to the second. Alright guys, so the second effect is going to be more of a transition. This is the version that I created. If I push play, it's really quick because I don't really have that much footage to work with. So what you're going to do is you're going to have your main clip here that you want to transition onto the next clip. So hold Option, drag upwards, go to the effects, go to masks, add a draw mask, and what you're going to do is just select the car. So in this case, I'm going to select the hood of this car. So something like so. And I'm going to zoom out to 50%. I'm going to go around, finish that off. And now if we disable the bottom clip, you should have just the car hood selected. I'm going to select the top clip. I'm going to go into transforms and under control points, add a keyframe. Do the same for position under transform. And then you're going to go frame by frame to where if the points move, just reposition these back to the original location, which should be about here. So this is what I got here, something like this. Now that we have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click off of this. I'm going to increase the feather, move the right clip in between this clip here. So it's going to be kind of like a sandwiched clip. You're going to select the top clip, go to the beginning of this clip here, and you're going to go to the transform, and you're going to add a keyframe next to position. So add a keyframe there. You're going to go to the end, go one frame to the left, go to the y-axis and move this down. So now if I push play, it'll kind of animate down, but it's kind of boring, so we want to make it a little bit more dynamic. We're going to move this playhead back, and we're going to go to rotation, add a keyframe, and then select the clip, the last to second frame. Under transform, we're going to go to rotation, and we're going to move this to a positive number to roughly 7. So now it's kind of tilting a little bit, so it looks just like that. And we're going to scale this up a little bit as well. So we're going to add a keyframe next to scale. Same thing. Under transform, we're going to scale this up just a tad. So now if I push play, it'll look just like that. From there, all you got to do is add a blur effect to the bottom clip. So select the bottom clip, go to effects, go to blur, go to Gaussian, and add that onto that last clip. So now it's going to look like this. And from there, what I want to do is kind of start it about maybe here. So we're going to move the amount to 0, add a keyframe, go to the second clip where it starts to transition, and increase this to 50. So now it's going to look kind of like this. It's going to happen very quick. The actual second clip is also going to need a blur. So go to the effects, add a Gaussian blur, and we're going to start this off at 50 at the beginning. So add a keyframe, and then you're going to go to where it finishes the transition. So about here, and we're going to move the amount to 0. So now if I push play, it looks kind of like this, but of course, the longer the actual effect is, the smoother it will look. So let's move on to the third effect. This is the third effect, and this one's really cool, and this is one of my favorite ones in this actual tutorial. And this one, again, no plugins or presets. So if I push play, you can do something like this. I want this to be a freeze frame, so I'm going to go up at the top. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to go to add a freeze frame. I'm going to zoom back in, and I'm going to click and drag this upwards. So if I push play, it'll just kind of stay stuck like this on that frame. And I want it to be roughly this long. I think that's perfect. Go into the effects, go to masks, add a draw mask onto the new freeze frame. And you just want to kind of make your selection here. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but since it's a still image, it can be as precise as possible if you want. It's not actually moving. So once you have your selection, you're going to click off of the draw mask, and you can increase or decrease the feather. Click on this transform button. Okay, it's going to look like this. So add a keyframe there at the beginning. Go about halfway first. And then we're going to rotate this to maybe something like this. So it's going to go about here. It's going to stop, and we're going to go one frame to the left at the end and move this down like that, all the way out of the frame. Click done, and if I push play, it looks like that. If you want to make this slower or faster of a animation, just right click and go to show video animation. You can adjust the transform keyframe. So we're going to move this outwards a little bit, and then this one we're going to move it about here. So when I push play, I want it to stay like this and then kind of spin, and then it will kind of go down. Now to make this effect a lot more interesting, we're going to create a blur. So we're going to go to effects, blur, and we're going to go to the directional blur, add that on top, move the keyframe to the beginning. We're going to change the direction of this to up like so. And we're going to move the amount to 0, add a keyframe, and go to where it starts, so about here. And we're going to increase this quite a bit here. So we're going to move this up like that. Make sure we add a keyframe next to angle. So add a keyframe next to angle right here. Then go right to where it spins about here, skipping a couple of frames. And then once it's here, we're going to move this and move it downwards. And then once it's here, we're going to just move this down like so. We're going to zoom out, and if I push play, it looks like that. Let's move on to the fourth effect. Alright guys, so the fourth effect is going to be this really smooth transition, except this one's going to be more of a locked on effect. This is the original video here, so if I push play, you can see how long this video clip is. So I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to go one frame to the left. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to go to add freeze frame, and I'm going to push play, and I want it to last about that long. So from there, what we're going to do is we're going to go into effects, masks, add a draw mask. Then we're going to select the wheel, so I'm going to zoom up to 100%. I'm going to click and drag to make a curve and try to make this as smooth as possible. So hold Option and click on these points to move them, kind of making them like a curve. And then from here, we're going to click once and click smooth to make that a smooth curve. We're going to hit invert mask, and I'm going to go into feather. I'm going to feather this outwards a little bit, or maybe inwards, I guess. Then you're going to select the next clip. You're going to bring it down. So now you can see through it. From this point, we're going to click on the freeze frame. We're going to hit transform. We're going to add a keyframe there. Go to the end, go one frame to the left. We're going to go to the scale, and we're going to scale this all the way up. And just move this back to about the center, like this, until you don't see those edges anymore. So if we kind of go back, it should look something like this. Then you're going to select the bottom clip, and we're going to hit transform. We're going to make this smaller. We're going to move this about here. Now this anchor point has to be on his face, on his cheek somewhere. Next to anchor, you're going to have X and Y. Just move this to the right, and then you're going to move Y-axis up a little bit and just move this back to here, make this a little bit bigger. Then you're going to add a keyframe. We're going to go all the way to the end and go one frame to the left. And then at this point, what we want to do is just increase this all the way. So zoom this up 100, like 100%. So now if we go back, you're going to see that there's black edges, and we can totally fix that. So we're going to go about halfway here, and we're just going to bring this up to fit this so you don't see any of those black edges. So go through and make sure you don't see any of that. So about here, we can see that. So we're going to kind of make this bigger and just only increase the scale. Do not change the position because that can mess things up. So once it's about here, you're going to see that black edge again. So we're going to make this just a tad bigger until we don't see that. Perfect. And then at that point, this is where I want to then add a keyframe. So you're going to add a keyframe next to that. You're going to go to the end of that and go one frame to the left. We're going to zoom out to 50%, and we're going to make this smaller to maybe 102%, and we're just going to click and drag and move this back. You're going to see that we kind of create a weird effect. So if we go back to fit and I push play, it'll look just like that. And it's a perfect smooth transition. You can play around with the speed and everything if you want. And from this point, what we can do is we can create a zoom blur effect. So go to the effects, we're going to go to blur. We're going to go to the bottom and select zoom. So we're going to add that on top. We're going to click and drag this centerpiece in the middle of that point here. So there's a before and after. We're going to add another one to the clip before that. So we're going to add the zoom effect to this clip here. So we're going to move this position back here. We're going to go to mount, and we're going to start this off to the default 32. So add a keyframe there. We're going to go a couple of frames before that, and we're going to go to 0. So now it's going to go through like this. So if I push play, it's going to kind of create that zoom effect. We're going to move the playhead at the beginning. We're going to add a keyframe next to amount, and that's at 32. And we're going to go all the way through until about here. We're going to turn that all the way off. Now we can also see some of that black edge on that clip. So select this. We're going to increase the scale a little bit on this as well. So that shouldn't really affect the end result. So now if I kind of go back and push play, it's a nice smooth effect just like that. Let's move on to the fifth effect. Alright guys, so the fifth effect is going to be this super cool zooming kind of clone repeater effect. Now, this one took me a little bit to figure out how to do, and I actually figured it out now. It's very similar to the original. To do this, it's very simple. What you want to do is find an area where you want to use as a transition. So I'm going to go one frame to the left here. So I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to go to add freeze frame, zoom out here, and I'm going to make this shorter. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to make a very precise selection with our mask. So as always, add the mask onto the video. You zoom into the clip here, and you want to be pretty precise with your selection on this one. All right, guys, so once you're finished with your mask, it's gonna look something like this. In this area, we could, of course, add another mask. So go into the effects, we're gonna go to draw mask and add another one. Except for this one, what we're gonna do is we're gonna select the areas that we don't want. So we're gonna select this here, and we're gonna hit invert. So now it's just the subject. So we can go back to fit, and I think that looks pretty good. So with the top draw mask selected, we're gonna go into feather, and we can feather this inwards, or we can feather this outwards. I'm gonna feather this inwards just a little bit. For here, we're gonna click and drag this and move it upwards. And now you can see the video below. So we're gonna select the top clip, and we're gonna go to scale, and we're gonna scale this up just a little bit so we can kind of make this full screen like that, so we don't see any of those edges. Perfect, so it's gonna look something like this. Now we can go into the transform, move the playhead at the beginning, add a keyframe, and this is gonna be kind of similar to the second effect where I showed you the car which is spinning. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move the scale down to 50%. We're gonna go about, push play. I want it to last about this long, and I'm gonna scale this up quite a bit, and then gonna rotate this like so, and I'm gonna move it about over here, so something like that. I'm gonna zoom out to 25% like that and make it a little bit bigger and move it off the screen. So now if I go back and I push play, it'll look just like that. All right, so once you're here, it's gonna look something like this. I'm gonna go back to the original clip. I'm gonna click show video animation, and I'm gonna start this about a little bit later. And I'm gonna extend this outwards a little bit as well. And this out and move the keyframes outwards a little bit. I think that looks good. Now we're gonna hold option and drag downwards a little bit. Right click and go to show video animation. And you're gonna see this is the top keyframe. So the bottom clip, we're gonna extend it outwards a little bit. So now it's gonna start a little bit like this. And then we're gonna pull this video and move it outwards a little bit as well. And extend this one out just like that. And then you're just gonna do the same thing a couple more times. So hold option, drag downwards, right click, show video animation, move this one over to the right a little bit, just like that, maybe a little bit more. We're also going to extend this one out a little bit as well. Extend that outwards. And that looks pretty good. So I'm only going to do 3 for this example. You can do 4 if you really want to. So if I push play, it'll look like that. And then we're going to select all of them, and we're going to group them. So we're going to name this clones, and I'm going to go into the effects. I'm going to go to blur, and I'm going to go to the zoom blur, and it's going to look something like this. I'm going to move this right above his shoulder. It's going to start at 32. I think we don't want it to start so soon. So we're going to start at 0, add a keyframe. Once it starts to animate, we're going to increase this quite a bit like that. Now, if I go back from the beginning and I push play, it looks something like that. Again, no keyframes or plugins required. And we're gonna go to the last effect. And if you guys are enjoying this video so far, consider leaving a like and subscribe. So let's move on to the last one. All right, so the last and final effect, and probably one that's gonna probably blow your mind, is gonna be a really simple transition and effect that you guys can use. No plugins or presets. So if I push play, we're going to create something like this. And again, you don't even have to use an effect within Final Cut Pro 10 to do this. It's just a couple of frames. As you can see on the right, we just created an exposure effect. So you're going to have 2 clips, and ideally you want them to be completely different. We're going to go into the inspector tab. You're then going to go into this tab over here, which looks like a triangle. Go to no corrections. We're going to add a color board and zoom into your timeline and press shift left arrow key to go 10 frames to the left. Do that again. So that's 20 frames. You're then going to go into exposure. You're going to add a keyframe right here next to this little button icon. Once you have your keyframe set, we're going to go to the end of that clip, go 1 frame to the left, go under master, type in 57%. Highlights, you're going to type in 100%. It's going to kind of create this really cool flash effect. The next one, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to go to no corrections. We're going to hit add color board. So you're going to have color board 1. Exposure tab, go to the master and type in 57. Just enter the same values as the previous one, so 57 and 100%. Press shift right on the arrow key twice, so 1, 2. This will be 20 frames. We're going to add a keyframe here and type in 57% again, 100, and we're going to go about 10, 1, 2, and type in 0. For some reason, I got rid of the animation. Not sure why, but you should have 2 keyframes here. So if I push play, it should look something like this, super smooth. And then you can, bring the one on the right inwards so it's a lot quicker. And if you want it to be really fast, move it in a lot more. Look something just like that. If you guys found this video helpful whatsoever, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss out on a future video like this one. With that being said, I'll catch you guys on my next video. Peace out.